Good morning, viewers. Thank you very much. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting from the Political Command Center in London. Good morning, all of you across the continent of Africa. Thank you very much for listening to us, for watching us all the time as we broadcast for the last 7 years. Thank you very much again, viewers across the continent of Africa, and tell the world that we are here to serve Africa. We are here to make Africa better. We are here to engage with Africa. We want to find out what ails Africa, what kills Africa. Good morning. This is Matsanga Global Trends, a program that looks at the events that are happening across the globe, the economy, the politics, the social life, the fragility of democracy. Democracy across the world is becoming fragile. Each day, we are having new changes in different directions. As we speak right now, the Prime Minister of Britain is Sunak, a man who has been working through the ranks of the Conservative Party, a man who was born out of a Kenyan father, those who left East Africa to go and grow more and expand. There are many. We are talking of a very serious situation. The trends, the changes. Good morning. Good morning, down with my co-host, Miriam Ogutu, in Nairobi. How is the capital city, Nairobi, treating you?
Sorry, Doc. We are okay. A very good morning to you, and indeed a very good morning to our viewers, and good afternoon or evening, depending on where they're tuned in. The capital city is bright and very sunny, and you're enjoying the good weather.
Thank you very much. I think, Miriam, you take it over from there, and you make the first punch on the headlines, news headlines, and what is taking place. I hear they are actually, swearing in ministers across. We can see from international systems and the Kenyan TV, the cabinet of Kenya is being sworn in today for full implementation of the work of the president and the people of Kenya. But good morning, Miriam. Thank you very much. How have you been in Nairobi?
All right, I've been well. So let me just take us through the headlines this morning. And the Star newspaper, the main headline, battle for plum parastatal jobs as terms expire. Analysis shows nearly 40 state corporations will present low-hanging fruit. The story is on page 4 and 5. The teachers' transfer policy caused untold trauma, MP. That story is on page 8. Slain Pakistani journalist Sharif kept low profile. That is on page 2. City Super CEC. Kerich returns in Sakaja's cabinet. That story is on page 20. And how President Ruto, cabinet nominee, survived MP's acts in Parliament. That story is on page 6. The Standard newspaper, reality check for President. President Ruto rode into office on pledges to lower the cost of living and provide cheap loans to small businesses, but 6 weeks into his tenure, the head of state has been forced to review some of the campaign promises as the reality of the country's economic situation hits home. And they're highlighting the fuel prices still highest 2 months after elections. The food, it could take up to a year to lower food prices. Cheap credit, hustler fund won't be interest-free. Kazim Tani, Uhuru's project for youth has been stopped. Drought, Kenya faces worst drought in 40 years. And economy, administration says it inherited a struggling economy. So that is just the Standard trying to keep up with some of the promises that President William Ruto made and how he's been doing in that. We still have 100 days. A lot of these things are supposed to be fixed by then. So, all right. Cabinet awaits swearing in after House approved. That is on page 4 and 5, and I think it's ongoing, as Dr. Matsanga has already updated us there. Safaricom changes tack on 5G. That story is on page 21. China's new oral COVID vaccine. You'll find that on page 26. Teams ready for Qatar World Cup. That is on page 47. And Pakistani Pakistan deploys team to probe killing of journalist. That is on page 8. And the Daily Nation, the main headline, Hassler Cabinet. That is it. I'll not go into the subtitles there. And main in sheriff shooting saga withdraws. Man in sheriff's shooting saga withdraws case against son. The story is on page 10. And Uhuru joins Tigray peace negotiations there on page 8. Very well, let's look at some of the headlines from across the continent and others from other parts of the world. The Daily Monitor from Uganda, government speaks out on Kampala lockdown. And then DRC accuses Rwanda of enabling war and looting. This does not seem that it will go away anytime soon. And the New Vision from Uganda as well. Government issues a tight labor export rules. That is the main headline. The Guardian worries for Naira as CBN redesigns currency mobs 2.73 trillion Naira black money. That is from Nigeria. The Nation also from Nigeria. PDP crisis, Otom attacks Atiku as Mimiko rejects job. The news today from Zimbabwe, ZANU PF targets civil servants. The Daily News also from Zimbabwe, ED drops hint on Politburo revamp. Okay, so the Daily Telegraph, that is from the UK. Sunak reconsiders tax rises as budget delays saves £15 billion. And the Guardian, also from the UK, fracking banned and pensions in spotlight as True's legacy rejected. And Sowetan, that is from South Africa, you will decide how to pay for e-tolls. And Pretoria News, also from South Africa, O'Sullivan implicated in Phala scandal. Remember that Phala, that is the farm for President Cyril Ramaphosa, and they found a lot of millions there that was stashed in furnitures. But anyway, okay, so that you're now up to date. That is the latest news headlines from a few countries across Africa, and of course we started with those from Kenya. A very good morning to you, Doc. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Miriam in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you very much. In the capital city, I can see the sun is shining. And let's look at actually the cabinet. Yesterday we discussed the cabinet of the United Kingdom. Three members of cabinet have roots in Africa and in East Africa, in Kenya in particular. Thank you very much for that. Now let's go to our main topic today. The global, is it a global meltdown? Is it a global meltdown? Is there a global economic meltdown? Are we facing one? These are some of the things, Miriam, that we want to look at this morning. It might be very important for people to understand that globally the economy of every country in the world has been affected. First of all, we came from the post-COVID. After COVID ravaged the world, killed many, the millions and the millions of people, we later on had a beginning which was not very good at all. That is the economies. There was nothing moving as far as the economy of the world was concerned. Transport was down. Air transport was reduced to zero. Everybody was not in the right position to move from one direction to the other, medium. So given this scenario now, we have, as if that is not enough, we immediately plunged ourselves into a war, the Ukrainian war. The Ukrainian war seemed to have brought more of the fuel that was needed in making sure that the economies of the world start melting. Is it a meltdown? Let's get some notes of background. Do you have some from your side? Then we can see some questions, what causes, because it looks like every country in the world is going to blame the Ukrainian war. Are we in Africa? These are the type of questions that I set out to say, to find out what exactly can be done, what Africa can do in preparation for this meltdown. Because like it or don't like it, it is coming. Is there a global economic meltdown? What are the causes? What can Africa expect? What factors contributed to this mess? If we don't talk about them, then we might not be able to solve some of the problems that we have, Miriam, in Africa. There are two. What are the consequences? We are looking at the consequences. Today we might be talking jokingly and enjoying and laughing and thinking there are no consequences. But I can see every government in Africa, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. I've been in Tanzania, I've been to Zimbabwe, I've been to every part of Africa, some parts. We have seen the ravaging of the floods in Nigeria, for example. Are African countries prepared, Miriam? Are we prepared to receive this shocker? Because this shocker is coming. It is coming on the streets of Africa. And time has come for us to say, what can we do as Africans to prepare ourselves? Those who don't want to listen, it is their problem. Mine is to say and talk and be on record. And I hope our studios should be producing those clips cut into so that people know exactly what we have talked to media. And I want to do that in Nairobi. You better tell them they must be recording this and do the videos, give them to people, circulate them. Some of the points that we make here help the administrations across Africa to change, to be prepared. Are we prepared? Is Africa prepared for the coming? What solutions do we have? Already everybody is crying of food prices. The cost of living in Britain is high. If petrol that used to cost a car, small car, to be filled with 20 pounds, you have to fill it with 200 pounds. For a car, a small car, to be able to run. The economy, the foodstuffs, the imported, the gas, the winter is coming in across Europe. Is it a global meltdown? The pound has slumped. The dollar has slumped. Where are we heading? These are the questions that I wanted us to think about today. Thank you very much, Miriam. Back to you in Nairobi.
Okay.
If you have some questions.
All right, Doc, and I think those are very critical questions that we have to interrogate at this moment, as you've said, and even the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development said that there's a possibility that the world is on the edge of a recession. So we shall look at that. But first, I'd like for us to look at this short video, and then we shall come back and continue with this conversation.
Thank you.
In March, the United Nations released this report. It said there were 107 economies that face at least one of the three risks. Number one, rising food prices. Number two, rising energy prices. And three, tougher financial conditions. 107 countries face these risks. Together, they represent 1.7 billion people. That's more than 1/5 of humanity. There are 69 countries that face all the three risks: food, energy, finance, all three. 69 countries could go the Sri Lanka way. 25 in Africa, 25 in the Asia Pacific, and 19 in Latin America. Which countries are these? We'll start with Egypt, the land of pharaohs. It is in the throes of a financial crisis. Egypt is the world's largest importer of wheat. Russia and Ukraine were its top suppliers. As they fight now, the supplies are running out. Last month, Egypt said that its wheat reserves will not last more than 3 months. Next, we have Tunisia, the birthplace of the Arab Spring. Its economy is overheating. Foreign debt accounts for 100% of its GDP. The trade deficit has widened to $800 million. Inflation stands at 7%. Fuel prices at record highs. Experts say Tunisia could soon face civil unrest. The same warning has been issued for Lebanon, the Switzerland of West Asia. Well, not anymore. In 2020, the Beirut blasts destroyed Lebanon's largest grain stores. Food prices went up by 11 times. The Lebanese pound lost 90% of its value. Public debt grew to 360% of the GDP. The war in Ukraine complicated things further. Lebanon imported 80% of its wheat from Ukraine. Those supplies have fallen. There's a bread shortage, a scarcity of sunflower oil. Lebanon has been forced to take a $150 million loan from the World Bank to ensure food security. Then we have Argentina, the land of tango, also caught on the wrong foot now. Inflation is paralyzing its economy. External debt is mounting. Argentina has defaulted on debt repayments 9 times. To avoid a 10th default, it has gone to the IMF. It wants to refinance a $45 billion loan. It may give Argentina a brief reprieve, but it will not quell the civil unrest. Analysts say Argentina is staring at a long and cold winter this year. Some other Latin American countries are also at risk, like El Salvador and Peru. They face hyperinflation in commodities, tumbling bonds, food shortages, detonating prices, and mass unemployment. Very much like Sri Lanka. Reports say both countries could soon face civil unrest. In sub-Saharan Africa, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Ethiopia could be the worst hit. In Ghana, debt levels are soaring. Interest payments are choking the economy. A debt crisis looks imminent. In Kenya, the debt has climbed to $70 billion. That's 70% of its GDP. Last week, they got a $244 million loan from the IMF to weather this economic storm. In South Africa, the debt has reached 80% of its GDP. There's a looming threat of state collapse, a rerun of the 2021 civil unrest. Next comes Turkey. The currency is sliding, the debt is soaring, upwards of 54% of the GDP. Inflation has touched 70%. GDP forecast cut to 3.3%. There's a food shortage. Turkey is getting 50,000 tons of wheat from India. And these were just a few examples. The World Bank says that in the next 12 months, as many as a dozen developing economies may not be able to service their debt. This will be the largest debt crisis in a generation. What about India? It will feel the impact. A few state economies are already inching towards a debt crisis. In Punjab, West Bengal, Bihar and Andhra Pradesh, the debt to GDP ratio is identical to Sri Lanka's. On the 3rd of April, Indian bureaucrats expressed concern. They said populist measures in these states could ruin their economies and leave them broke like Sri Lanka. Now, here's the thing. The entire world is in debt distress. National budgets are at breaking point. Some governments are being forced to cut spending. Others are borrowing more to stay afloat. What can we do to stop this? How can the world prevent a debt typhoon?
Thank you so much for that. Just a quick presentation there on the situation as far as the debt crisis is concerned in different countries across the world, especially those in Africa. We've seen the figures there on Tunisia, Egypt, and of course countries like Lebanon, Afghanistan, Kenya also has been mentioned there, and many, many other countries across the world. And economic growth in sub-Saharan Africa is set to decelerate from 4.1%, that was the figure in 2021, to 3.3% in 2022 as a result of a slowdown in global growth, rising inflation exacerbated by the war in Ukraine. Adverse weather conditions are tightening in global financial conditions and the rising risk of debt distress, as that lady was, explaining there in that short video. And Africa is among the least diversified regions in the world with regard to exports. Commodities account for more than 60% of total merchandise exports in 45 of the 54 countries in Africa, leaving them highly vulnerable to global commodity price shocks and undermining the continent's inclusive growth and development. So, Doc, as I think when you're explaining there some of the key questions that we should be interrogating this morning, it is our overdependence of commodities that come from outside the continent, and we've seen how that really exposed us, especially this period of COVID-19, and wherever the international, the global markets is affected, the impact here in the continent is quite acute. So perhaps moving forward, as far as self-reliance is concerned in the continent, what are some of the things that our governments can put in place to caution its citizens?
First of all, Miriam, you've seen from the clip, 25 countries in Africa face a real gourmet, a dark, a bleak future. But what can we do to cushion our citizens You are aware that Kenya was mentioned. The vulnerability of having no food, for example, drought, these calamities, a meltdown after COVID-19 has brought in also the question of natural situation that we never knew that it would happen. The problem that African countries have is we don't marry the two. When it is very hot, we don't utilize the sunshine. When it is very rainy, when there is rain season, we don't marry the two, the cold and the hot season. We should be harnessing these waters. If you look at the country, 62 years of independence, Nigeria, for example, it doesn't have floods. It has not even dug any tunnels, any canals that can remove the water safely to the ocean. It has done its forest cover is gone. They have cut all the timber, the wood, the trees. They have gone to China to make toothpicks. And we are here, we are watching. God created this world, but told us there are certain places that we should not go. One of the things that you are asking me, how do you cushion the citizens? How will you cushion the citizens when you are encouraging citizens to go and cut more forests, to cut down the wood and take it to... If you stand at the port of Mombasa, on the road to Mombasa, and count how many trucks, for example, that come from Congo, from South Sudan. When floods come in South Sudan, the president is going to cry for help. But in actual sense, he has been allowing people to cut the trees. You know very well the trees in South Sudan have all been cut. The forests are no more. Miriam, you have a lot of connection and links about South Sudan, which you always like to read about and study and research.
Yes, it's my favorite
There
place.
is no, there are no trees there. They are finished. So when it rains now, it pours. The soil, the flooding, the landslides, mudslides, all these will come. So the best, what can they do? What can governments do? The best we can do is now to cry before it comes. Let's cry. Because time has come for Africa, for us to tell Africa the truth. Instead of lamenting and writing books of lamentation. How many people care about the weather? How many ministries? We have created a ministry here. You've created another ministry there. You create in Uganda, for example. You find the administration in Kampala encourages people to give up more space for Namamve. The forest, you saw the forest cover as you leave Kampala. The forest cover used to reach up to almost Kampala Kireka. It has been cut. So now if it rains, the amount of floods that are going to come into the city of Kampala, because everywhere there are no trees to evaporate this rain and to take out the rain that has gone down. The soil is left vulnerable. We are going to have a problem. Africa needs to start preparing themselves. An economic meltdown comes with so many things. Medium, it comes with inflation, which is rising so high in most countries. You have seen Tunisia, you have seen Kenya, you have seen Uganda, you have seen Egypt. The inflation rates, inflation is hiking. with inflation, it takes even more. It takes even more people to create products of one insecurity, security threats. You see, as the economic meltdown medium comes, it also comes with security threats. It also comes with regime change. It also comes with political fragility. I think I need you to take those points down. Inflation, security threats, regime change, and the political fragility. Africa is going to face, and the world will face, political fragility. Believe me or not, as we speak now, the world is facing political fragility. Very few governments in the world, might survive the political fragility that we see that is roaming around Europe. You see the changes of government. Look at what is happening in France. The situation in France, demonstrations on the streets, Miriam, every morning. Look at what is going on in Britain. The pound has slumped, dropped so low. A few days ago, I was changing my dollars. I got my dollars, I wanted to change. Usually, no, I had my pound. I wanted to change the dollars to put on when you are traveling. I'm telling you, $1,000 gave me $700. 1,000 pounds gave me $700. I almost cried tears. I said, what? Usually when you used to, in Britain, you go and change the $1,000 pounds, you get $1,300 to $1,400. Now it cut to a half. I looked at the guy changing the money for me, the Indian guy at the Heathrow Airport. I said, he told me, if you have the pounds, you better change them quickly because it is falling, you might lose money. So these are some of the effects. If you go to the supermarkets in Britain at the moment, the supermarkets in Britain, we used to go with 100 pounds, you'd buy a full, trolley of assorted goods, soap, paraffin, oil, cooking oil, Blue Band, all these things. Now, the supermarket in Britain at the moment, 100 pounds, you come out with items that you could carry in a carrier bag. You don't need a trolley. The basic thing that the difference between Europe and Africa is that they have a social system. They have a social contract that shields their people. Has Africa got that social contract? Has Africa got the social cover? Where is the cover? Where is it? So we are open to regime change, demonstrations, agitating for rights, price increases, cost of living is so high. There are people who have not eaten. At least for us, we have had breakfast. But there are people in Kenya, in Uganda, in Africa, in Egypt, in Malawi, who have not eaten breakfast. They have 6 children, but they haven't touched any breakfast. What can we do as Africans and the global world, in the melting world, to cushion our people? One, education. To tell them the truth about what is going on as far as the economy is concerned. That as long as the war, under this war, as long as this war continues to be as it is today, as long as the war in Ukraine continues, Russia continues to occupy, Russia continues to fight with the West, we are going to have no letdown in the economic meltdown, because it is disrupting every part of transport. How do you transport goods? The war embargo, sanctions have been put on countries that if you are found with oil, where do you go? Countries that have tried to trade in their currency are being blacklisted. It also adds on to the black market, trafficking, drug dealing. So many things are going to come up in order for people to survive and to beat the economic meltdown. How do we protect our people? That is a big question, Miriam, that I cannot answer here. You saw the lady in the clip was not able to answer either. It's how do you protect? How are you? We better be prepared. How will the people service their loans? Many African countries have got drones from China. Are we going to go to Sri Lanka way? Is there a possibility in countries like South Africa? I have seen already a place where you used not to hear that there will be an alert of a terrorist attack. Why is a terrorist attack in Sandytown? And they have put everybody on warning. Who are these? Who is trying to get this world disorganized? Who is doing this? Because there seems to be a well-coordinated plan that each and every African country will have chaos. South Africa was one of the best places where you could not hear of terrorism, apart from the ANC, when they used to bomb to get to power. But Miriam, we had an adversary from the American embassy in South Africa saying there will be a terrorist attack by Sunday this weekend. So don't go into Sandytown. What is the main cause? Economic meltdown.
That was
World is melting. Yes.
That was very shocking, Doc, as you've said. Like, that is the last place you would expect to hear such alerts. And interesting, after that notice was issued by the U.S. Embassy there, and I read a few comments from South Africans themselves. And I think one of them stood out for me, not in a good way. And this South African was saying, with over 15 million illegal immigrants, what do you expect? So again, it just boils down to the xenophobic psychology they have, so they have to blame it to the rest of Africans who are there. But also, I thought, South Africa was the first country in SADC to send its troops to Mozambique to try to fight the Al-Shabaab in Mozambique, and they had won. So there could be a link to that, I'm not sure, but we can't rule that out. And of course, other factors that has to do with what is happening across the world, and economic meltdown could also be a driving motivation there.
It is not only drive. You see, Miriam, we get lost here. When you are going to start to blame economic immigrants, are they the terrorists?
They're not. And it's interesting. The psychology of these people is amazing.
When you hear of a president of an African country hiding money in a sofa set, $6 million.
But you want to blame a Zimbabwean for coming there. I mean.
So the Zimbabweans did not tell him to hide that money. It means he's fearing of the future. He's fearing of a situation that is going to come. It is a situation that is making everybody scared. It is nothing to do with anybody called an illegal immigrant. What does an illegal immigrant do to go and try to kill people, yet he has come to survive? So South Africans all the time have got a blame game. And that is why, for me, I am always very frank on this African continent, to say the truth and the least. That is, the whole problem of South Africa a peace process held in South Africa will never get the truth. You see already now, if there are those type of scare, a delegation cannot go back there again. It can't go back there. South Africa is trying to see whether they can stabilize, to work the kingmaker. Me personally, I had thought that the Ethiopian peace talks can be held in Tanzania. If Tanzania looks very free, they have facilities for such a flow in, not to allow. But why the Italian government, which is behind the peace talks, remember Italy wanted to conquer Addis Ababa long time ago. We are aware of the people who have been fronting the peace talks. I would like to tell them to quickly change the tactics, remove the talks from South Africa, bring them to a country that has got the fragility, the peace itself, that has seen the peace, the transition, where delegates from Ethiopia, from every part of the world are able to speak freely. Because in South Africa, the delegates are not interacting freely. You fear if you go outside, there's a gunman telling you to leave your phone, telephone, wallet, and even the belt. They want to take everything from you. So the center in South Africa cannot hold. The earlier we look at what is causing all this. Something is pushing a situation to reach where it is as a matter of the truth, and anything could happen anytime. And this could bring us to an economic meltdown, will therefore create a lot of, or increase quite a lot of difficulties for South Africa. So thank you very much on that one. Bring any other question that you would like to.
I think there's something there that you've said as far as this economic quagmire that the world finds itself in. I think it's a problem across the world at this point. I see even here in Kenya, our president, the new president, William Ruto, is really struggling to even deliver on some of the promises that he made during campaigns. And I think once he became president, he realized things are really different. So as much as he had made these wonderful promises, it's not practical, and that is because of the state of the economy globally that is trickling down, and every country is just feeling it in its own ways. And so Kenyans might be required to be a bit patient, perhaps, to give him time to deliver. And some of these things, as long as the price of fuel remains high as it is right now, then everything else will just complement that. I don't think there's any way around it. But there's something you brought up as far as the causes of security threats, the lack of food, the rising food prices, the rising energy crisis that now is around the world. And I've been reading this African news, and you see countries like Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt, and other countries around the continent. There are protests over high food prices, and that will lead to one of the things that you also mentioned there, the regime change, and very unstable governments across the continent, and we know how that is a very sensitive thing. What started the Arab uprising in 2011 in Tunisia? It was the high cost of prices there and the high cost of living, and the people couldn't take it anymore. And so these could really lead to very unstable countries in the days to come, because not just in Kenya or in Africa, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom, 3 of Europe's largest economies, are expected to undergo lengthy recessions next year. So that is expected next year, recessions, largely due to the energy supply issues caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development said on Monday. And the United Nations also has sounded off a warning that the world is on the edge of recession, and developing nations like those in Asia and Africa could bear the brunt of it. and the monetary and fiscal policies in advanced economies, including continued interest rate hikes, could push the world towards a global recession and stagnation. So the UN Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, also said last month. So things are not really looking up at this point. And so one key thing also, Doc, you mentioned there is education. I think, for instance, here in the country, it's about time perhaps President Ruto, because I see even his own supporters are getting agitated and people are becoming very uncomfortable and very impatient because they were told in 100 days your life will completely change and you'll be back to okay. But the reality is it's not possible and there's nothing much he can do. So perhaps there needs to be a need for engagement and creating awareness towards people and make them understand, I hear you and I see you going through tough times, but the reality is this is what is happening, but just be patient as we work on getting things in order, and perhaps when the global economy gets better. So I think education there is very, very important, because a lot of people right now are wondering what is happening. Why can't we be told what is happening? Why do we still have the fuel prices that high, and yet fuel prices are high all over, Doc? You keep saying here how much the cost, it's costing you there in UK to fill. It's not the same as years back. So I think education and awareness creation is very important, and that might help in calming down the populace. Otherwise, we're staring at regime changes here.
Miriam, you got. It is important. I've kick-started this topic for African governments, whether Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Somalia, Egypt, Nigeria, Zimbabwe. You better start talking about it, because the economic meltdown is going to be huge. And the economic meltdown is not only in Africa. One of our readers, our followers, has just said, in Denmark, where he is, Mr. Otto, you can read that comment. Mr. Otto, yes.
Yeah, he's saying in Denmark, people have started stealing firewood for heat. Doctor, economic meltdown is real, even here in developed countries, because there will not be access to the gas.
The gas, there's no,
from Russia.
There's no heating, because we have antagonized the source of the gas. We have antagonized the source of the heat, where the gas is piped through to Europe, into Europe, and then into Britain and other places. So the economic meltdown is going to be one that will affect everybody in the world. You will find that planes will not be traveling because fuel might be scarce. There might be very little fuel for planes. So we must start preparing. For example, as Africans, Miriam, our own continent is very vulnerable because we don't have the facilities that the European countries or the West, the developed West, has. At least there, it will be there, but it won't be harsher than ourselves. The point that you have raised again is the point of dialogue, to start educating the people, talking to the people, and asking for more time. I was very impressed with your president, His Excellency President Ruto of Kenya, when he said, give me 100 days. 1 year. But that is reality. And I don't think Kenyans should make noise about that. That's a reality. I don't want to go into your politics, but it is a reality.
It is. When he came to office, he realized 100 days is not possible. Yeah.
It's not. Things cannot be worked. And everybody in Africa must understand and start giving the government time, and the government must engage all governments, not only Kenya or Uganda, every government in Africa. In Nigeria, for example, how can you talk of floods coming in somebody's house? I saw a lady on the clip Miriam, this lady was talking to the microphone, to the CNN, while the water was reaching here. Yes, and the water was reaching her breasts. Look, is this the Africa that we want? Is it the Africa that we are looking for? Is it the Africa that people want to talk, to see whether it is going to be an Africa that can help us in the future? That is why I brought this topic. And this topic is an economic meltdown for the whole world. It's not only Africa. So governments, there will be regime change. There will be plots, coup plot. There will be coups. There will be demonstrations. We must expect this, because if there is no economy, there will be insecurity. You remember, we still have terrorists moving on. South Africa was one of the countries that I never expected that someone will get a scare, a bomb scare that terrorists will attack. Where have they come from? Who wants to finish this country? As we look at that, drug trafficking, human trafficking, you not see that most of the African cities, their children on the roads. They come and knock on your car. They knock on your car on the window. I was in Mombasa sometime, and there was a traffic snarl. About 10 people came to the car, knocking on the window, literally. You know, people have tinted their cars, but now these people come on the car and put their eyes there and knock like this medium. Please give money. 10. When you look this side, there are 5. This way 10 in front until the traffic lights. So insecurity among these people who come, people will start robbing people. Streets will be unmanageable. I was listening to one of your programs this morning of one of the television stations where one of the senators was saying, one of the MPs was saying, there are more street children that have come in Nairobi than before. There are many children in the streets, and they was urging the government to be given to give food to people of Nairobi, because the streets are full of the children who don't have food. I was listening to it this morning on my phone. So when you look at such, these are some of the scenarios that we expect that are going to come, that could cause quite a lot of difficulties for us.
Okay.
So
yeah, just
so
yes.
As a result of all this, it is better, you have even talked about engagement. Let governments start engaging the people.
For right,
the government
start engaging for right now, Doc. But for posterity, for the future, I think we have to leverage on the high knowledge intensive services to increase productivity and improve competitiveness in the private sector. That will be the key of achieving high value added diversification of production, because how we even farm in this continent, we still use very old-fashioned ways, and this is not working well. And a continent like Africa should not be still receiving food aid from outside. These dry countries, these countries with extreme weather conditions, we are blessed with a good weather all year round that is favorable, for farming and all this. So could we just leverage on knowledge and science and see how can our people be food secure? Because the way we've been doing things is not working. So how can we be more productive and ensure that our people are fed? I'm ashamed sitting here thinking about our forefathers and the dream they had, and one of them is for the continent to be able, and the children of the continent not to go to bed hungry, for us to be self-sufficient and to be able to feed ourselves. And many, many, many years later, This is a challenge and something that we still have to deal with. What is the problem? How can we do things differently? Because whatever we've been doing clearly is not working, so that we can have at least food security in this continent, because I think that is a huge problem that if it's not really looked at and sorted out, then it might lead to other things that might just tie down to the insecurity that we're talking about. So other than the education, what else can we now do to engage ourselves in to ensure that we have practical solutions to some of these things that you're dealing with? Joseph Otto Manasseh, you're saying my advice is to the African people, let us understand that this problem is global. George Soros can easily use this situation to create turmoil from the youth to take to the streets on Africa for regime change. We don't need another Gaddafi killed in Africa. Let's educate people about this. No more street hooliganism. And Charles Munga, thank you so much for watching. You're saying, hello, Punchline Africa. It is true, life is too hard, even in Europe here. So nobody's sitting pretty. Things have changed. So it is indeed a global economic meltdown, but we have to think about ways of immediate solutions, but also find solutions for posterity.
George, of course, as we look at that medium, Otto is correct. Yeah. George Soros is plotting, is also plotting, is going to fund chaos. Is going to fund, especially, I'm more worried about the countries that are going to have elections starting from now. Nigeria, Zimbabwe. Those are countries that are going to face this economic meltdown. And anybody from Zimbabwe watching this clip must start preparing that there is going to be a real meltdown, and there will be quite a lot of difficulties for people that can create whatever difficulties that you are looking for, you will get it. So in this scenario, George Soros comes in, pays a few disgruntled. I was watching a clip yesterday from Uganda, a man who is presumed to be a leader of one of the members of the ruling party, went for a funeral. And the guy was beaten, he lost his teeth, the whole teeth. People turned on him and beat him very thoroughly. Very thoroughly. They beat him very, very badly. I don't know. I got so much shocked. And the people were cheering. So such elements can be used to destabilize government. Also, you should not forget, governments are also going to use the economic meltdown also to squeeze some people. So this is where things are going to be murky and noisy. Messy, as Mr. Wetangula, Speaker Wetangula would say, the end will be messy and noisy. So the end of all this, as long as the Ukrainian war is